was decided by a committee at SARU, and it was announced to us last November. I suspect that method will be followed this year still, but there is talk under the equity deal that those rights will vest in a commercial rights entity. So I assume that the commercial entity will manage that going forward. So I think if the equity deal does proceed, that will be done by a different committee. But we don't have any insight or any input into that process.
Craig.
Speaking of the equity deal, have you guys had any feedback from SARU? I know a few months ago the main franchises were asking for clarity on. So the issues, has anything been forthcoming behind the scenes?
There have been discussions. There was an update last week, and it seems on track. I mean, SARU wants to present it seems like SARU wants to present a transaction to their members in the short term. So, like I say, in the next 2-3 months. Right. Not much more information has been shared, but it's the outline of the transaction is fairly clear to us, and SARU seems to be committed to this course of action.
Steve.
In terms of the administration, has SARU kind of left you with some, in terms of their intervention with any legacy debt that you have to deal with? Because obviously they would have spent money on running the union, and if so, how do you deal with that?
Yes, there is a loan outstanding. So SARU can only provide financial assistance to its members. So under the administration period, SARU made loans to Western Province Rugby Football Union. We then used that money to keep the company liquid. That loan is accruing interest and is repayable. Part of the Red Visas investment, we renegotiate the terms of that loan. So there is a mechanism whereby that loan, the interest on that loan is serviced by the company, and future increased distributions will be set off against the loan. So we'll make capital repayments as SARU gives us a bigger distribution. So that is contractually agreed as part of our buying transaction.
And then in terms of, I would assume then from the way you're talking, you also in terms of Currie Cup, you see the bigger picture. The results are kind of less important to you. I mean, you're looking more at Dobson and these kind of guys coming through.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 120 days in the hot seat, and I've spent my time focusing on where I think I can add more value, and I think where there are bigger problems. So I've spent very little time on the rugby side. I think I can add very little value there, and I think we've got competence here next to me. So I don't trust my judgment on rugby yet. I do buy into the coach's vision there and their plan, and I think our biggest commercial opportunity, and as a team, what we set out to achieve is the URC. So I think given the scheduling that we were handed, I think the approach was the right one. I think it is a challenge with the rest periods and the overlapping competitions, it is very challenging. And I think if one can align, I think everybody knows the seasons have to align at the very top. If you get international season, where essentially the test championship gets played in the Six Nations window, our whole scheduling, the whole URC and EPCR will start making sense. And I think a clear window for the Currie Cup will emerge. And I think once that's set, and it's set in stone for 3 years or 4 year cycle, then I think we'll plan and say we've got to do better. But I think while it's very difficult to sign players and manage your playing squad, if you know the competition can just change again next season. So I think, in summary, yes, I support what we did. I think towards the end of the URC season, we'll know whether it was the right decision or not, even though there's short-term pain at the moment. But we don't accept it. We'd like, if there's clarity on the calendar, I think we will plan to be competitive in the Currie Cup. I don't think any of our fans accept a situation where we outside of the knockouts, out of knockout contention with a match or two to go.
So organisationally, earlier in the season, like it was last year,
I think the Currie Cup in its own window makes sense. I think from a commercial perspective, it'll be completely diluted if it's played concurrently with other tournaments. But I think the elephant in the room is the Test Championship and the Six Nations not being in the same window. Because that just makes the scheduling of the other competitions very difficult, and that shortens the Currie Cup window. So I think if you align the seasons by playing those two at the same time, I think there's enough time left in the season to have a Currie Cup played outside of the other competitions, while having enough time to rest your URC squad. Yeah.
Cool. Yes, good.
Just European ambitions outside of the URC going into next season. Do you think we're still going to see the kind of common theme amongst South African sides going, oh, not just yet, more needs to happen, more depth needs to be created. At what point, will you be ready to kind of have a full crack at that one and say, we're here now? How long is that going to take?
Yeah, look, we're closer than we were this time last year. I think we were disappointed with that season, but to get out of that group and to host the last 16, I think was a good achievement. So, we shouldn't be retrogressive from there. Look, we took I think us and the Bulls up until which is the Northampton game, we'd all tried, we'd just gone out swinging, And I think with some reasonable success, because it's a different competition. You can't, sitting as even as a URC, we adapted to that, and then you just saw this was then the Heineken Cup as a sort of another monster. It is a step up between what we do in our URC things, and we got exposed. We had our pants pulled down that day in Exeter, and it was a lesson. I mean, we went there full strength, came back here, and we lost. Was it 20 or 21 game unbeaten home record? By coming back, by doing that, but the point is now that, when those guys have played that afternoon, like BJ and Andre Hugo, they're now Springboks. So I think by the growth of our squad, in addition to those three players, I think we're in a much better position. If you ask me honestly, I think, to win the competition, I think the South African team's a little while off still. But I mean, one of us must get into the semi-final. Everybody fights every competition, whether it's FIFA or Cricket World Cup for the pool of death. We claimed it last year. This is a tough draw as well. But I would we've got quarterfinal 2 years in a row. And I think the stats were the more statistically minded of you would know the stats. But I think if you included if anybody does, include the Japanese top league, Super Rugby, what's left of it in Australia, New Zealand, the URC, the Champions Cup. Am I right in suggesting there was one away win in all the playoffs? And I think it was literally, you took the quarterfinal of the Super Rugby, being flippancy aside, Super Rugby, URC, Champions Cup, English Premiership. There was one away win across the whole lot. So you just got to learn, you've got to play that quarterfinal at home. And that's I think that's probably a year off. Yeah.
Cool, Lisa.
You've avoided my players resting protocol thing by resting the guys now this season. Do you have clarity what you're going to have to do next season? Because certainly you have to start planning ahead. If those resting protocols are set in stone from
it's a good question. Good question, being a different one that's hard to answer. What I mean, but it is good because it is a concern. I mean, a lot of that resting was, of course, just logical, but we try to be proactive and get a step ahead by resting more than we thought, not risking a scenario where we have to play in the Six Nations window or quarterfinal and Netherlands on short 3 weeks or whatever. So we would try to be really proactive, from a player welfare, genuine player welfare, the concern for them point of view, and trying to get ahead of the regulations, but. It still seems a little bit uncertain. Is it 8 consecutive? Is it 3 + 3 + 2? Can you split the 3 out? What it looks like next year. So my only hope would be that our sort of proactivity doesn't, what's that thing where you don't do your homework and then the teacher sort of writes it off. It doesn't matter. And the guy's done his maths in the first week. And the says, don't worry about it. So I hope it doesn't get like that. But I think. Listen, I agree completely with Johan. It's unsustainable with a 12-month program without that test window, Because there are 1 or 2 guys we've called in a week early just because we were running out of cattle, as the poem goes. So, it is a challenge. But I think we're ahead of it at the moment. And I think just logical player welfare to have. We dragged, for example, Willie Engelbrecht. He didn't play much URC, and that's where the Currie Cup's been useful, and he was on 300 and something minutes. But you drag him back from Glasgow and put him into the Bulls on a thing night. 2 weeks later, he's at the Griffins. It's logically not a sustainable situation.
Cool. Liesel's next.
In terms of the Championship Cup, you were told that they're going to semi-finals will be played in Italy. I just want to know how is the schedule already there? And even the first game is BBC, so on the Championship Cup website, the game's going on.
I'm not sure about the semi-finals.
Yeah, but we'll be making an announcement about our first game very soon.
Okay.
This week.
Okay.
There you have it. Yeah.
Yes, the first game we announced, it's the semi-final I'm going to win. Sorry.
Yes, maybe.
Just in terms of personnel, players, captain for the season. I know it's a bit early, but you guys have quite a lot of captains have left. I mean, you've had Marvin Ori left, Ernest van Rijn, Woons available in the box. So we'll be taking over as captain. Will it be Nietle Boucher perhaps, or?
No, it's going to be. It's also a good question. No, because Kitsy and Saman are both back. I mean, they're two outstanding leaders. One was our captain for a couple of years. One did a brilliant job as captain South Africa. So I can't. It's like the flower point if anybody's going to ask it. The answer is I don't know, and I hope one of them's injured. Then I would have to answer the question. No, I don't. But Nietle would be the sort of preeminent guy locally, the home guard. I think we actually thought he might be a Bok. The Springboks are going so nicely. So to bring Nietle, but so the Saman and Kitsy, it's going to be a discussion,
And then just around the coaches, there's been lots of debate about, obviously you guys have sort of not had your players for the Western Province campaign, and your coaches, you guys have rotated a lot. For next year, will you guys sort of appoint a head coach properly with his own team? Because I mean, it hasn't worked out really in terms of results with you guys rotating all the time.
It hasn't worked out in terms of results. It certainly worked out in terms of the project, I say. When I look down at the jeepers that Joel and Gina on the weekend, JC Mars, Devon Fuller with school, it's staggering. I mean, Fuller is a beast. It's worked out, but results-wise, I think we talk a lot about player welfare, but there's also the end of coaches' welfare. So, what I wanted to do really importantly was that I wanted to get to know Devon Fuller and Lonel and really work with them. So I didn't, outsourcing that coaching, I think we wouldn't get to know this guy needs to work on how he stays in the poach. This guy, Devon, somebody suffers from anxiety, or Potty's got a problem with the speed of his hit. And we only do that with the URC. If we think we've got to confirm them for URC, I want them to work with the URC coaches. And then there was a logical thing that, Darby had put in a hell of a lot. So we'd rostered the splits, that Darby would take the first 2 or 3 weeks off, and I would take a couple of weeks later. But as I said, if there's an argument to have just for the players' stability and maybe just more for the media and the public face to have somebody sitting in the coach's box and comes into the press conference, I mean, that's something we can discuss. I'm not close to that idea. The fact that the URC coaches must work with the next generation, that to me is really important. That's not going to change. But whether there's a head coach or something else, I think that's a discussion we'll have in the wash up.
Just last question on players as well. You have 2 experiences with Brock Harris and Johan. What's the status on them? Sorry, I know. Are they staying on for another year?
Extended Brocky for 3 years.
No,
listen, those are just 2 Province guys. So, it's actually a good question. Brocky is doing another season. It's remarkable. But I mean, I'll show you. I was looking at a clip of our friendly against Northampton in March. I was looking at some breakdown stuff last night. He makes a tackle that, I don't think anybody at 20, it's extraordinary. So we tried to pull him back, and we said, listen, Brocky, we just got to bail out because we thought, Netling would go up to the Springboks, and France was there. Sazi's had long-term injury. Lee's left. Brock he's doing a full preseason, so he's got 1 more year as he transitions to coaching. So he does under 21, scrumming under 19, which is great. And Dion, you would think, he's won a World Cup, done an ACL, played against the European quarterfinal, done an ACL, and comes off for the. And you'd think, this natural window, Dion. We've got some plans for you in the future. We'd like to involve you still with the team, because ACL's a terrible thing to come back from. And Sears Murray pull aside, and he said, "I'm not ending my career in a golf cart." So I think that's credit to him. So he hasn't been extended, but he's got this season certainly to come. He's actually about 3 or 4 weeks ahead of his RTP, so we may hopefully get him back at the back end of October. But they're great, so And then Steve Duvanoff has got a promising career as well. So the other bright youngster on the Curry Cups on the side. Every coach got to say their team's the youngest.
Just on having that extra coaching responsibilities, is appointing a Curry Cup coach just for Curry Cup dependent on how Saru even find a proper window
it would be very much a product of that. I think if it was in a window where all of us are energized and we would go for it. As Johan said, I think definitely. I don't think we light on hands. I think we've got a nice settled coaching structure. Everybody understands their roles, supports each other. It's a really comfortable environment. as I say, just the Curry Cup, I understand Mbin's point. It didn't look elegant, you know, Derby and the beep. We were just trying to share the load. So I think if it gets a comfortable slot, then I think we'd love to roll out that. And whether that's, you know, I do the breakdown and Beep runs the campaign, or Rita runs the campaign and as a succession plan or something like that, that's another debate. But I'd love, listen, the Curry Cup's in all our DNA. I mean, we haven't had our names on it. I think Grave hasn't been busy since 2017. So, there are excuses, but we'd love to have a crack at it.
Cool, great, mate.
Well, both, maybe I'm from the commercial side. Any thoughts the Curry Cup team becoming the Stormers team, you know, name-wise? Because obviously Western Province is still into the amateur side of the group. So is that on the cards or under discussion?
It's something we're discussing. I mean, I noticed the Sharks playing as a Sharks 15. I think most of the other teams have gone.
I think the Bulls have dropped the Bulls, isn't it?
They're the Bulls in both competitions.
Yeah,
the Lions
yeah,
yeah.
So I mean, I think there's been a move across the franchises to move their teams closer to one brand. I think it makes a lot of commercial sense to maintain one rather than multiple brands. So I think it is something we're looking at. And it's,
yeah, I suppose the Storm is 15 years on here.
Yeah, I think that's something one could settle on. I mean, I think we were traumatized by dropping, you know, not seeing Western Province on the TV anymore. But it's so it's not something there's no proposal on the table, but it is something that we've noted everybody else does. So it is something we'll consider.
But I think it ties into the whole idea of a club rather than, you know, you're no longer a union as such, you're a club. And, you know, a club needs to have the name.
Yeah, and I mean, one brand is important. I mean, there's a lot planned for the brand to support it, and I think it's diluted if you do it across more than one brand. So I think there's a lot of logic to it, and it's something we will definitely look at over the coming months. Yeah.
Lorenzo? No, you're okay. Matthew again.
Robert, interesting that you were speaking about Johan and Lionel, because given what's happened with Evan and with BJ Dixon going so well internationally, likely to be on the England tour, is that the position for, well, say, loose forwards? Is that the thing that's maybe keeping you out most?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
and the departure of Nama and Junior.
Exactly right. So last year I felt the Curry Cup slot, to your point, Steve, was actually quite useful then from a coaching point of view. You know, having guys match, not as a commercial or respect to the competition, but having guys match fits, and then we were sitting with, because of the change structure, the game time. Junior, I think, was on 30 minutes last year, I might be wrong, and the Northampton friendly. Nama wasn't on a fortune, you know. Billy was dropped down from 1,000 minutes to a couple of 300, I think. So we had far too many last year, and then suddenly they're just gone like flies. Whether that's, we sort of focused on reshaping our squad a little bit, like I discussed at the start, and then loose forward. But that's a lesson for us there, as we, you know, as the sort of rugby sort of caretakers of this region, is that suddenly gets produced like Devon Fuller. I mean, it's you know, it's a lesson for us. You know, Paul de Villiers, Lionel, and you know, I would have said real crisis. I did. That's why we rang out. That's why Charlie Ewers came here on a short. I think his name right. Dave Ewers. Charlie Ewers is the guy who came here last year. Yeah, that's why we rang it, because of that crisis and because of our European thing. But then sitting back in the Curry Cup and watching these guys, brilliant. I mean, those three I've just mentioned. I know Paul's from Otaniqua, but they're local boys and they're special, and that's what rugby in this region does. But loose forward is our biggest. To go into Europe with, we were worried about going on tour. Let's say, I'll give you a scenario: Marcel, Billy, who would be the other one? You know, retraining somebody at 6. Kiki was still injured for a long time. Kiki's going to be special, but it's a major injury. So yeah, loose forward has been from famine to, was it from riches to poverty, or whatever, feast to famine.
Yeah, just double on that as well. We had an opportunity to ask about it, but the 15 players that you let go, what was the reason behind? Was it the player captain, or just sort of giving the opportunity somewhere else, maybe? Or not good enough? I mean, it's
no, I'm trying to think if there's one guy that we actually, look, we wanted to reshape the squad, that, you know, around the youngsters. We're a team that, I think that under-21 team that last year was generational, so we want to create a pathway for them. And I said, we have to create, Johan said, we have to try, you know, keep, okay, BJ wasn't as big as this time a few months ago, but those, we knew Sasha was special, we extended him. So we needed, there has to be a bit of give somewhere, and that's probably in the Curry Cup middle tier. I don't think anybody was called in and said, listen, we're not going to renew you. I mean, Chook's got an opportunity, Nama got an opportunity which he pushed hard, and I can understand why. You see, I think that the track would have been to feel sorry and like go and ask for money just to keep him to feel good. Lee Marvin went to racing, which is a great opportunity. You're never going to stand in the way of that. It was a sort of natural attrition of end of cycle. There wasn't somebody I think we had an awkward conversation with. I think Chad Solomon was maybe an exception, but his guy's just graduated. He's just done his masters. He wants to go and live overseas. I even spoke to a club in Italy for him. He used to get out of the under the apron. And there's one other that
Queens of Blues, he went to.
Queens got an excellent, great deal.
Chiefs,
yeah. So and they were pretty much soft landings all around. I'm aware of one player who hasn't really got a gig, which was a source of concern. It's a brutal sport like that, but so it wasn't. It was guys having other opportunities and not being able to. I can't promise Quenzo you're going to. Kitsy's going to come back. I can't promise you're going to get 600 minutes or 18 starts or. So it was more around that sort of realistic ending of a cycle. There was nobody. Obviously, there's nobody during contract.
Who else?
Tomo, how's your injury list looking like going into the new season?
Tough. Long, yeah. It's a couple of pages. I think it is longer than it should be. I don't know if that's a product of the season or like the length of the season. But just to give you probably what you after this, so Dion is tracking ahead for end of November. Sazi should be back next week. We could have forced him a bit earlier, but you don't want to mess around with the concussion. We're on the hooker side. We sound Booper's another couple of weeks. Locke, Gary Porter's back this week. A big blow. That was the thing with the Currie Cup, which perhaps proved us in a funny way right. We go and put. Sorry, give you a long answer. Going guys in. In round 2, we'd lost Sazi Samdi, Connor Evans. There was a big loose forward who went. Lizu, Ali. That was just by round gone. So Lizu and Ali long term. Connor's probably gone for most of the season, which is a pity. I think he was growing really nicely. He's got I won't pronounce it, syndesmosis. He's till April. Herschel's back around the start of round 1. Evan, December. Good point. Evan, December. Brunner's a bit ahead of track. Adre's back this week. Ben Loader, December. So it's a bit longer than we'd like. Dan Ruan's back now for the start of URC, which is great. The other one in the frustrating one of the wings is Zas has come back now.
And Damon Williamson, is he available for a couple of boxes?
He's on the field. He's not in team training yet, so that's normally a month off, and that'll be a product of discussion with Sprung. But he's close. The guy also training back is Sinatla. He can't play yet because he's under insurance, but he's at least moving again, which is good. Yeah, it's a bit longer than we'd like to start a season, but I mean, people like Herschel, Zassi, a big ticket. Dion tracking as a big tickets for us. Important players.
All right. Well, good guys. Thank you very much for your time.